Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the NRW. I'm your host today, Rob Medina, and I thank you all very much for joining me here today because today I'm going to be reviewing the Christmas film In Just Friends. I saw this movie in theaters when it was released back in November of '05, and I was a fan of Ryan Reynolds at that time as well, and still am to this day. So when I heard about the plot synopsis about a guy who is stuck in the friend zone with his best friend and wants to be in a relationship with her, and it seems like it's a constant hurdle to just get her attention in that respect, I wasn't entirely sold on that synopsis alone, but just because Ryan was in the movie, it was enough for me to want to be invested in enough to check in the film and want to go and see it in theaters. So when I did saw the movie in theaters, I fell in love with that movie. I thought the movie was hilarious. I think the movie still holds up to this day. I still love this movie. And this is a film that I constantly put on my Christmas rotation around the holiday season. Along with A Christmas Vacation, and also a third film that I just happened to add recently. And even though it's not a holiday film per se, because it really isn't, but it was released during Christmas back in 2018. That's Cherokee Creek. But I watched that movie even outside of the holiday season. But because it was released on Christmas Day, I now add that onto my rotation during the holiday season for me to watch these films that I've come to love as the years have gone by. So Just Friends, Christmas Vacation, and now Cherokee Creek are my top three constant rotation as far as holiday films are concerned that I watch every year now. But I was actually kind of surprised to see that Just Friends isn't one of those holiday classics like Christmas Vacation, A Christmas Story, what else, Elf, Home Alone, just to name a few, right? Because despite the fact that this movie, I do know at the time didn't get a lot of great reviews. It had some good reviews, but it was very mixed to like almost negative and slightly positive, depending on where you were coming across with the reviews. That I thought in time after its release from theaters that it would garner a bit of a cult following, that it would be considered to be a holiday classic because people have discovered it throughout the years and have now made it as part of their holiday rotation, if you will. And that hasn't really seemed to happen at all. In fact, I remember coming across quite a few people that whenever we talk about holiday films, that I threw in Just Friends, and a lot of people that I've come across here have said I've never seen the movie, or I have seen the film, but I don't remember much about it, or I haven't seen it since it was released in theaters or whatever it was they last saw it. And I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to delve into this movie because even though I know this movie is not a perfect film, because believe me, it is not a perfect movie, but I still think that the imperfections of this film still work in its favor. It's part of its charm in a lot of ways that I almost look at it as a very nearly flawless film because I enjoy it so much, quite literally from start to finish. When I first saw the movie in theaters, I swear this is a true story. And not a lot of people know this here, but the fact I'm letting it out there now, it is going to be what it is. But the movie starts off with the song I Swear by the group All For One. When I was a kid, that was my favorite song of all time as a little kid. Like I was maybe like 4, 5, 6, somewhere around that time. I heard that song when it first had come out, and I love that song. I still love the song to this day. I don't give two fucks about who knows about it, or let alone if they're going to make fun of me. I don't care. I still love that song. And when I saw the movie, when it opened up with that song, I was like right back in my childhood. So it already won me over just off that song alone. And then Ryan Reynolds starts to lip sync to the song, looking into the mirror when he was in high school, where he was actually overweight. And I thought it was hilarious. So the fact that the film had that going for it, where it got me hooked immediately off of a piece of my childhood, of a song that I grew up loving and still love to this day, had already won me over. So there's a lot of so there's a nostalgia factor behind it that hooked me in for sure. But it was also funny at the same time that it does play out bit by bit throughout the film, and it never feels like a joke that's kind of run its course, because they actually use that song very effectively at the right moments from the very beginning all the way to the very end, especially at the end when you watch the credits here. But that was a good starting point for me with the film. And then from there, I just started to connect with all the characters and the various things that goes along the way. So I know I'm already kind of going off on a tangent here with this review for the opening sequence here. But I will say, though, that, it's not difficult to find out that the couple, the two people that were following this movie, who start off as friends, eventually become a couple at the end of the film. So there's no spoilers of this film that I think it's gonna throw you off. It's gonna ruin the film for you, because I still think the film holds up very well. That it's so funny, it's very entertaining, that no matter what I reveal, you're still gonna be invested with the story. At least I hope you would, as I was, if not more. So I'll get into the plot synopsis, my positives, my negatives, and then my rating. In this romantic comedy, a recording industry executive comes face to face with his old high school crush, a woman whose rejection of him turned him into a notorious womanizer. But now he realizes that she is his one true love, and he wants them to be more than just friends. And that right there is the film in a nutshell. So now let's get into my positives. My first positive with the movie are with Ryan Reynolds and Amy Smart. They are clearly the heart and beat and soul of this film, because without these two people having great chemistry on screen together, and if you're not believing the fact that they've been friends for years before the events of the beginning of this movie, and seeing how they have this really strong bond with one another, like they're more or less like brothers and sisters. And even though Chris, played by Ryan Reynolds, is one of getting out of that friend zone to be able to have a relationship with his best friend, and Jamie, played by Amy Smart, if you don't have that believability aspect to them, where you can truly see that they are, a family unit, if you will, and that you could possibly see that they can make this relationship work out into a more or less like an intimate relationship, if you will, it's certainly something that I don't think would have worked out as well, despite the fact you have all these other great qualities about the movie surrounding this couple here. But the fact that you have that early on established, and for someone like myself who loves this movie, be invested right away, I think that's something that is a lot of credit to both Amy Smart and Ryan Reynolds, and having that established very early on, because when they are with each other, they have some wonderful chemistry with working together, because like I said before, you can clearly believe that they are still very much connected with one another, despite the fact that Ryan Reynolds' character and Chris is trying to do something different to win her over. They're the habits he's developed throughout the years, being a womanizer and trying to win her over, and realizing the tactics he's done before with various other women that have worked on him, that worked with them before, is not working on his best friend now. So now he's forced into a situation where he realizes that I think I have to go back to the guy that I was, being this needy, whiny type of guy, because we were friends when I was like that, and that probably will work on her again, and then I can win her over in that way. So it becomes like an agenda rather than trying to just reconnect with a friend and getting to know them again and try to catch up. But when you do have those moments where they have those really genuine character moments where they're just conversing with each other and going over some things in the past, and then looking at videos and photos of themselves and revisiting places that they used to hang out on a frequent basis when they were kids, that you can see early on that Ryan's character and Chris is someone who's trying to find another avenue to be able to win her over, but she just wants to start from where they last left off and reconnect from there again, and then build it up from there. So there's two different approaches about how each of them are going about it here. But at the end of the day, when they do have those genuine moments about just reconnecting, and you see how that's developed throughout the story, I appreciated their love story along the way. It's a very earned aspect of the relationship, where us like audience members will know that that's going to be the case here, but to see how it's developed and how it's earned out throughout the narrative here, I think was done effectively by their performances, and the fact that they have great chemistry worked in their favor for us audience members to be invested with that. One other thing I want to point out too is with Ryan Reynolds' brother in the movie Mike. I forgot the actor's name. I'm sure I'll have his image for you guys to see there, but this actor, I've seen him before in two other films that I thoroughly enjoy and love, in Freddy vs. Jason, along with The Girl Next Door, which is a movie that I think is a fucking classic, which I'll do a review for that film one day. But the actor that plays his brother Mike in the movie, that particular aspect of relationship, we've seen that before, where you have two brothers who have a clear major age gap between them, where they obviously do care for each other, but they have this constant brotherly battle where they're just poking fun at each other, and they're saying some pretty mean things, and they pick fights with each other, but yet they still work well with each other despite these major differences between them, and especially the age gap. But for something like that could have worked out negatively toward the film, but in my opinion, I think it helped enhance the story that much more, because it's the chemistry with the cast here. I think everyone that's worked on this film, they all work very well with each other. They all have a great chemistry on screen, that when you see how things start to unfold along the way, could it be viewed as a very generic and very cheesy? Yes, I would agree that it can be, and it is in a lot of ways, but I don't care, because I think the movie is a lot of fun and everyone gets along with each other. So that particular aspect of the relationship between Chris and his brother Mike was something that I did also appreciate as well too, where you get to see how he goes about that form of relationship when it comes to his family, especially with his mother as well, which I'll get into in a little bit here, that you could see that there is certainly a set of values that he has when it comes to how you can see he's kind of viewed as an outsider, and that's how he pretty much has grown up here. And the fact that his younger brother is someone that pokes fun at him for how he looks and how he knows that he's trying to get with his best friend, but it's not working out, and makes fun of him for that as well too. That's where the tension between the two of them has certainly developed throughout the years, and it's still maintained the same way for the most part. And then now that he's back at home and trying to do the exact same thing from when he last was there in Jersey, or about 10 years ago, they're pretty much picking where they last left off. And I think that worked very well for this movie. And then there's even a part of the movie as well where the two brothers are just going at it with one another, and then all of a sudden they stop and they say, I love you too, and then they're sharing cookies, and then we'll go off out into the next room, which I thought was a very genuine little moment in the film that I thought showcases that they are constantly at each other, but they still love and care for one another. And at the same time, one brother is doing a favor for the other brother with some incentive, of course, but you can tell that despite the fact they may not want to do it, that extra incentive that, hey, my brother gave me this here, so I'm just going to do it. But there's still a lovely brotherly connection that is there, that is established pretty early on, and then as the story progresses along the way is developed, I think, quite well, despite the fact that it's not the main focus. But you can see that they've handled that, in my opinion, really effectively as well. Now, the mother here, we've seen mothers like this before on screen, where there is a mother who is kind of like, I would say, more or less absent-minded. But she's also very charming as well. A very endearing, very loving mother who is looking out for her children and has this approach on things that's very naive in a lot of ways. And you can kind of tell too that also had an influence on the character of Chris, where he's kind of handling things in that kind of the same approach, very in a naively way. But you can see that the fact that he's been able to step out of that box, if you will, how he's been raised by his mother, that he's developed some personality outside of that, where especially when he's been away from home for over 10 years, that he's developed much more stronger personality, still maintaining his insecurities. But the fact that his mother was always there for him and always cared for him, you can clearly tell that he very much loves his mother and also loves his family overall. So there's wonderful aspects about the relationship when it comes to his family that you get to see that the character of Chris has, that you can side with him despite the fact he's kind of an annoying guy who is very much selfish and consumed with himself. But you have those human moments where you get to see that he's not that big of a jerk in a lot of ways, that you can actually side with the guy as the story progresses along the way because of his family members. So I think a lot of credit is to everybody to be able to pull it off here. Other aspects of the other characters I meant to say that I want to point out here are two more I'm going to say real quickly, are going to be Anna Faris, who plays like this pop star, Samantha in the movie, along with Chris Klein, who is kind of like this nerdy, geeky guy that you see very early in the movie, and then who's kind of like in the process of writing a love song for Jamie, and was a terrible singer, terrible guitar player, and had this greasy looking hair. And then as the years have gone by, he turns into this handsome guy, because of course Klein is a handsome man and is a very good guitar player now, can sing very well. So clearly some things have changed along the way for some of the people for the better, and you get to learn how they conduct themselves along the way too. But in this particular case here with Anna Faris' character and Samantha, the pop star, that is pretty much the reason why things have turned out the way they've done, where they're forced to land in New Jersey, but due to a careless act that she has followed through with here, not deciding, only thinking about herself and not really thinking about the overall well-being of the people around her. So you get to see that this particular character, although I think a lot of people may find her annoying, because I think I was one constant thing that I have come across in some reviews, that they thought her character was really annoying and then was very useless in the film. I think the opposite. I think she was hilarious. I thought she was great. And again, there were some minor moments of humanity you get to see her, where she's clearly very selfish and very conceited and very consumed with herself. But that was actually part of the character's charm along the way, where, she definitely did present some major hurdles, because she has a thing for Chris in the film as well. That is another major hurdle for him as well, that he had to overcome while he's trying to get reconnected with his old high school buddy here. So I think when it comes to how that clash between the two characters in Chris and Samantha, played by Anna Faris, are being developed throughout the story, can it be viewed as a kind of annoying and very cheesy and unnecessary? Sure, but I think it worked well in the favor of the movie, because I think Anna was fantastic in the film. This is not the first time she's played characters of this sort before, and I think she's great when she does play these characters. But the thing is that I think if you really just take the time to look at the character outside of the fact that we've seen this before, Anna does a really good job in making the film that much more funny, that much more fun, because there's a lot of great comedy moments that she has in this film that I think worked very effectively. So I think Anna Faris is one of the best things about the movie, along with Chris Klein, who you come to find out along the way that has become kind of a douchebag and is using this nice guy persona just to sleep with women and get what he wants and use them to his advantage. And then you find out how that's developed throughout the way as well too. And I think he does a really good job in showing a different side of a character that he's normally doesn't get to play often, from what I can recall. So when I saw him in this movie, I thought he was phenomenal, hilariously funny, I should say, and was really good as well too in the overall narrative we follow with this film. But so I mean, I can literally go on for hours about this film. But one thing I want to point out more or less in my closing here is that the comedy in this movie, although very physical, over the top, slapstick, they work very well for this movie. There's actually one particular sequence in the film that where you see Anna, character Samantha, kind of crashes through Jamie's home, where her father has his whole holiday setup that he has going on, and is actually considered to be one of the best holiday decorations about the neighborhood. And he says the state, but you know, I guess that's just the ego there. But the point I'm getting is that sequence right there is done so well when you see the amount of work that goes into that and how things are starting to fall apart, the timing, the technicality of it. If you watch the behind the scenes and how it's put together, it's quite impressive actually. But when you see it in the final cut, in the way it's executed, I think it's hilarious. And then you have these little funny little punchlines here and there that occurred throughout that particular sequence that I think worked very effectively. So it's not necessarily a way to kind of just top off the film, but you have certain moments like that where it does work, where certain things start to build up and then it has a major payoff that does work out with what they were trying to accomplish here. That scene in particular, I think, was one of the funnier moments in the movie. But you know, even when you have a scene like that, everything else around the film, around that sequence, I should say, still holds up well to the point where that major payoff right there is the only thing that saved the film. No, you've got other great aspects of the movie as well that definitely does hold up to their end as well too. So great story overall, great characters, great love story, I should say, and a really fun and a Christmas film, I have to say, that I think in my opinion still holds up well to this day. There's a lot of great moments in this movie that I still laugh out loud to, that has never changed. I watch this movie and I still get the same reaction every single time when I watch the film, that I think that, you know, in time, I'm hoping that people will pick up on and eventually consider it to be one of those major holiday classics in the vein like of Elf, Christmas Vacation, Christmas Story, Home Alone 1 and 2, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of great qualities this movie does have that those films have as well too, that I think people can take away from, enjoy, and put back in the rotation whenever the holiday season begins. So for me, that's going to be the end of my positives. So now let's get into my negatives. When it comes to the negatives with this film, you know, I'm not going to say that this is a negative of the movie, but this movie is very formulaic in a lot of ways, because what we see in this movie has been done before a million times in various type of films, whether it be a holiday movie, romantic film, or straight up comedy. We've seen these beats before, and I know that there has been a lot of critiques about this film having the same generic beats we've all seen. But honestly, every film you come across here has been told in some way, shape, or form. Some better than the others. Some have done very well in telling a unique aspect that's very risky, and some have been told in ways we've seen a million times before, but just did it so well that people connect with the story, and the film have done well critically or financially, whatever the case may be. But I think with this movie, despite the fact that it has those same beats we've all seen before, it was something that was being held against it, because a lot of people were just criticizing the film for those reasons. And I don't see why that was a problem, because I still got a lot of fun out of it. In fact, I remember specifically when I saw the movie in theaters, there was a lot of people that did enjoy the film that really laughed out loud, like myself. And when they walked out of the theaters, they were talking about the film and how enjoyable it was. But I do recall, if I remember, I do remember specifically one person that said, "We've seen this before, but yeah, it was kind of funny." And that was kind of like the general consensus for a lot of people who have seen the film. But then people had forgotten about it. So I think this movie, in some ways, I think has some issues where it could have that familiar beast we've seen before and then be easily forgettable. Because even when I was watching the film before I did this review, I do remember thinking about it, where like this is something that could be looked at, enjoyed, and then forgotten about. When you look at a movie like A Christmas Vacation or Home Alone, or, you know, let's say Elf, they offer something rather unique. We've all seen these stories before, but they're doing something so unique with it that it's you as an audience member are connecting with it, and therefore hold on to that throughout the years so that when you look back and revisit it again, it still brings the same type of feelings that you got the first time watching it, that makes you remember certain beats of the film that stick out for you. And I don't think this movie really does have that per se. I happen to notice that as I started watching the film again, that I realized that I think that's the one major negative that does work against the movie. But despite what I just said there, I still thought the film was enjoyable, and I still thought that the film had those great qualities that I think can make it a holiday classic. But I can understand why now, upon watching the film again as of late, that I could see where those familiar beats actually work against the film. So I think that's my first major negative here that I can really point out here. The other negative that I can point out here is the fact that the film takes place in Jersey. So the reason why I'm bringing this up here is because I'm surprised I never noticed this before, but as I started watching the film the last couple of years, I noticed that I was looking for something that I could point out that what I liked about the film, and the fact the film takes place in Jersey. Not a single person in the film has a Jersey accent at all, and they're like outside of and they're an hour outside of Trenton, so they're not far from New York City. So an accent should very much be there for everybody to speak with, and not a single person does. Which is I thought was strange, because not to say that because they didn't have a Jersey accent that works against the film, because I've been to Jersey a million times, and I know people who have been born and raised in those parts of the state where some don't really have a strong accent, some do, and some have a much stronger accent. So it just depends on the person, I guess. But it seems like everyone across the board, not a single one had an accent. And I think I might have picked up one or two. They may have had some type of a Jersey accent, which I was intentional or not, I don't know, but it was something that I did remember that stuck out for me as the years have gone by, that I've noticed. But because the film is so enjoyable, that I honestly didn't put too much attention to that as of late. But it was something that I did notice that was something that I thought could have been worked on. But you have to think about dialect coach, because this movie was shot in Canada, so you have to train a lot of Canadian actors and a lot of American actors who are not from New Jersey to put on that accent. It could be a daunting task, because it does take time to develop that accent if you're not familiar with it at all. So I think that, even though I would say that is a negative, I don't hold the film against it for not doing that, for not having the accent, I should say. But it would have been nice, because I would have liked to have seen a movie that deals with the Jersey family culture, if you will, have the accent, so that way you have a section of America that a lot of people may not be really familiar with here in telling a story in Jersey with the accent, but still have the same family value, same Christmas holidays spirit, if you will, that people can still connect with, despite the fact that it takes place in Jersey. But seeing that side of America, if you will, of how that culture is like in New Jersey, especially in that part of the area where it's out 1 hour outside of Trent, which is a very specific area that I think a lot of people may not be aware of, that I think would be nice to have seen that culture, if you will. So those are really the only two major negatives in the movie, because, again, this movie is not perfect by any means, as I mentioned before, but I still think that the movie holds up well, that all the positives outweigh the negatives by a long, long mile. But again, even the negatives with this movie, I think is part of the film's charm that I think worked effectively, that made me enjoy the film that much more. So that's gonna be the end of my negatives. So now let's get into my rating. So it's not hard to figure out what I think of this film. I love this film. I love this movie with a fucking passion. I enjoy this film so much that every single time I watch the movie, I still get the same reaction every single time when I watch the film, like I did the first time. And that's a very rare thing for me to experience with a lot of movies, especially films that I've actually come to realize there's certain films that I've watched on rotation for a number of years. And as the years have gone by, something has changed for me along the way, that it's very rare nowadays that certain films still hold up that same, where I had the same sentiment as I did the first one. Like The Godfather 1 and 2 hold that for me. Demolition Man is one of those films that I watch and I still get the same reaction every single time I watch that film. The Matrix, The Crow, of course, Christmas Vacation, and then now here, Just Friends, just to name a few. And also, I want to say Ninja Turtles, the Teenage Ninja Turtles, when they came out in 1990. That movie still holds up for me too. So the point I'm getting is that this movie still has the same I still get the same reaction every single time I watch it. I still laugh at the same beats, knowing full and well what's going to happen, but I still get a genuine laugh out of this movie every single time I watch the film. So for me, that is considered to be a masterpiece. So I will say this movie for me is a solid cheers. And those are my thoughts on the film. If you have seen this movie, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to the NRW, make sure you share, like our videos, and hit the notification bell while you're down there as well. Also follow NRW on social media, on Instagram, New Release Wednesdays on Facebook, Nerds Rule the World, and on Twitter at the NRW. And you can follow me on my social media accounts on Instagram and Twitter, Mr. Rob Medina, and on Facebook, simply just Rob Medina. And I have a show on the channel called You're So Cool with Rob Medina, and I have social media for the show as well. On Instagram, You're So Cool with Rob Medina, and on Twitter, You're So Cool WRM. And that'll be it for this review, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, stay safe out there, and cheers.